Hello.
No, then you're all right.
Yeah, gotcha.
Cheers for jumping on.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Yes, are you in London?
We're in Brighton.
Ah, right, cool.
Yeah, Brighton.
When did you move down there?
10 years ago?
Ah,
About.
okay.
Yeah.
Looks like you got an air set up there. It's like a loft studio.
Yeah, it's a loft. I'm showing it off for the first time.
Quality, yeah.
Where are you
Um,
based?
I'm up in Manchester.
Oh, okay, cool.
You're
Nice.
playing up here soon, I think, is it in March?
Yes, we're playing the Deaf Institute.
Yeah, good venue, yeah. I'll try
Yeah,
and come down, I
classic.
reckon.
Classic venue.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so well, obviously you had a bit of nostalgia on Instagram the other day with your NME article from 20 years ago.
Yeah, that was great. That,
Um,
you know what? I don't know if you want to keep this for later or but you posting that allowed us to repost it. And the journalist who wrote the original review for our album for that issue of NME got in touch with me. And then we started a conversation for the first time ever. And so now he's coming to the show in London. And that was because you posted that article.
That's it.
Thank
Is
you
that
for that.
Anthony?
Hey?
Is that Anthony? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. No,
That's
he's a nice
crazy.
guy.
Yeah, really nice. He was really cool.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, I was just listening. I spoke to Glenn like before,
Oh, yeah.
via his other band. Everyone says hi,
Yeah.
and so it's kind of like a bit of a different kind of backstory, obviously, with you guys in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I mean, he said he said something about his life was quite remote in Australia, like he was literally fighting kangaroos or something. He said,
Yeah.
is yours a bit different to that?
Mine was different to that. I was not fighting kangaroos, but it was remote compared to London, say. So the thing that Glenn and I had in common is that we grew up in Australia, which is by comparison to, England and the States and wherever, um, it's sparse and it's uh, environmentally quite barren. So I'm a big believer in environment affecting your art. And I think that growing up with not a lot of limitations, physically, mentally, whatever, allows you to kind of write music a certain way. I really believe that. So we both kind of had that experience, Glenn and I, and Joel, my brother.
Yeah, yeah. Because I was reading as well. Well, it's within the article from NME that your dad was a musician. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah,
Was that
yeah.
kind of a good lead in for you guys?
I think so. Yeah, he was a musician. He grew up in Perth, which is, Perth in the 50s was about as, you know, um, sparse as you can get from a city. And he had a very particular experience growing up, and music was his outlet in every way, shape, and form. And so it became his religion, I guess. And so when he had us kids, he raised us on that religion, which was music, which was rock and roll. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Did in the article it said one of his songs made its way onto your album. Is that right?
Yeah, so our first album, our self-titled debut album closes with his song I'm Not Afraid.
Ah, that's cool. Was he
Yeah.
loving that? Yeah.
Sorry?
Was he into that at the time?
Oh yeah, he loved that. He was so excited. Yeah. And I
Yes.
really think we did it justice. We left it really sparse and honored the energy of the song.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So what was it like then growing up? Were you and Joel writing songs together quite early on type thing?
Yeah, we both kind of kickstarted our musical journey separately. So he would, if you can imagine, we lived in this small house in this suburb, and he was in his bedroom. He has a twin brother, and they shared this one bedroom, and they were both music obsessed. But Joel picked up the guitar, and he discovered blues music very early on. So he was, losing his mind, to everything from Robert Johnson to Jimi Hendrix. And then I was in the room next door, and I had picked up the guitar around the same age, except I was teaching myself Beatles songs. I had this like really thick Beatles bumper songbook, and it had tablature in it. And that's how I taught myself to play chords, because I would like stick my fingers on where the dots were. And I was like, oh, that's an E minor, or that's a D, or whatever. And, as you know, the Beatles have really unique chord progressions. And so, I would play Cry Baby Cry over and over and over again. And then I'd go write a song. And so we were having these parallel musical universal experiences. And that's how that started. And only after that did I knock on his door. And I was like, "Do you want to start a band?" Like, all right.
So is he older or younger than you then?
He's younger.
Ah, okay.
You'd never know it, but he's younger. He's 3 years younger than me. Yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So like, did that affect anything in terms of the music you're into, do you think? Or not really?
Age, you mean?
Yeah, just in terms of the different music you're into or anything like that.
Not really. We were very much into the same music. Anything with a pulse and anything that was, really dynamic and soulful was on our playlist. Yeah.
Yes. So then the first band, is that Waikiki? Is that the band that you got
Yes.
together? Okay.
Yes. So we started Waikiki with Glenn, and
Where did
and
you
it,
meet Glenn then? Was that in Sydney, is it?
yeah, yeah. Well, he
Okay.
was up in the country. He was up in Gunnedah, and I put an ad in Drum Media, which was the local music paper. And I think I had said guitarist, singer-songwriter, want to start a band, influences, Beatles, Radiohead, Mazzy Star. That was it. Um, Weirdly, I think Howling Bells is a lot more true to that than Waikiki was. Waikiki ended up being a lot more indie pop. Um, and Glenn answered the ad. He knocked on our door with like a good country cap on, and he was just like, "G'day," and that was it.
And that was 2004, is that right?
Yeah, around
Okay.
then. Yeah.
So what was like obviously like over in England, like, the Strokes had kind of blown it up a bit and you had like the Libertines kicking off and everything. What was it like in Australia? That kind of bled its way over there a bit?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember, when your folks talk about the first time they heard the Beatles or
Yeah.
Led Zeppelin or whatever, I actually remember where I was when I heard the Strokes on the radio. And I was at a particular intersection in Sydney, and the radio back announced the song. And I remember thinking that it sounded like Elvis Presley. And that's so weird to me now, knowing who the Strokes were. But at the time, I was like, this sounds like Elvis Presley. I remember thinking that it sounded different to everything else on the radio. Um, so yeah, that very much fed into the music scene in Australia at the time, like everywhere, really.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean Australia had its own thing going on, I guess, with the likes of the Vines and
Yeah.
people like that.
Yeah, we had the
Um,
Vines, and there was like Jet and Wolf Mother and all these like retro revivalist bands. Although I absolutely love the Vines. I actually think in the long run they were massively underrated. At the time they were huge, but then they kind of fizzled. But I think they're a brilliant band. And so yeah, there was a lot of that going on. And we just kind of skirted around the outside playing, upbeat indie pop at the time.
yeah, yeah. And would you have like club nights over there and stuff? With like indie
Say
club
that
nights?
again?
Would you have like indie club nights over
Yeah,
there? Is
yeah,
that a thing?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think that was a lot bigger in England though, because when we first started touring England, every single venue we played kicked us out of the venue to then put on an indie nightclub. I don't
Yeah, yeah.
remember that happening so much in Australia.
So what was it like then in terms of Waikiki? Was it quite linear in terms of did you have like a record deal over there and stuff?
We did. We landed one pretty quickly, and they were, supportive and had a very strong idea about who I guess they thought we should be. We were. Um, the problem, however, was that um, I think deep down I could feel these limitations being reached pretty quickly, and I knew that there was a lot more to what we were capable of. And so that became a kind of I started to feel suffocated in that format, in this like indie pop format. It was suffocating, especially with this music world that was exploding universally, and I was really paying attention to all of that.
Ah, okay. So who was putting those limits on you? Was it yourselves or the record company? Or...
Yeah, both. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Both, because you get trapped as musicians. You kind of create this sound and then you trap yourself with this sound, and then you have to continue down that road. And I had decided at a certain point that I didn't want to do that anymore. And we were too young to be trapped by our own sonic limitations.
So how many did you get like an album together with Waikiki then? Like, how did it work in
We
terms of
released one
songwriting?
album called I'm
Okay.
Already Home. Incidentally, has just gone up on Spotify for the very first time. So you can listen to it if you want.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, one album, a few singles off that. The singles did all right, like charting, good radio play. There was really no reason for us to resist any of that other than our own stubbornness and stupidity.
What about in terms of songwriting then? Like, how would it work typically back in the day?
Typically, I would carve out the songs and then bring them to the guys, and they'd make them sound how they sounded. Sometimes Joel and I would write songs together, um, and that's pretty much the same format now. It's pretty much exactly the same. I'll write the songs, bring them in, um, and they'll fill them out.
Yeah, yeah. Is it
Yeah.
quite reassuring being in a band with your brother? Like, is it quite
Yeah.
like good to go on the journey with him type thing? Have him there?
Yeah, it is. And it was definitely when I was younger, because I think upon reflection, being a young woman in the music industry in the early 2000s presented certain challenges, and it was nice to have, camaraderie. It was like nice to have you bros around you. And Glenn has always been like a brother to me, so it was nice to be in a gang kind of thing. Now more so just because it's such a truly, truly surreal and bizarre landscape right now that it's just nice to have your friends with you. Just experience the weirdness together, you know?
And then we said, so what was, I mean, it sounds like you were gaining momentum in Australia then. But what was
Yeah.
was there, I mean, you've kind of covered it already a little bit, but what was the catalyst for kind of upping your roots?
So it had been like brewing, 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 and then we played this festival called Splendor in the Grass, and it literally, the catalyst was watching Black Rebel Motorcycle Club side of stage, and we had played our set already, and so we were, able to chill. And I just remember sitting side of stage and watching their set and just having this like epiphany and just thinking that that was what I wanted to do, not what I had done on stage 2 hours ago. And that's the record I want to be listening to. And that's the music I want to be writing. And I had already started writing songs that I knew wouldn't fit Waikiki. And then I have like a very, very vivid memory of pulling Joel aside and then Glenn and like after their set and just saying, we need to get the fuck out of Australia Like we need to move, we need to change the band name, we need to record a new album. We can do better than this. Like we're bigger than this, we're better than this. And just like really, really kicking and screaming like a baby, just being like, we gotta go. And then I think we had a meeting like that week with our manager. And he was as crazy as we were. So he was like, you want to go? We're like, yeah. He's like, well, let's go. Let's just get on a plane and go. Like, okay. All
That's
right.
it. So had you played outside Australia before that at that point?
Nope.
Right, right.
No, never, my parents dragged me to London when I was a baby, but other than that, never been. Actually had no idea what we were in for. It was a big culture shock.
Yeah, I think you described it as like a huge leap of faith.
It
Um,
was, yeah.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, again, faith or stupidity, but I think they're pretty closely intertwined. So, um, we took all of that, faith and the stupidity, and we jumped on a plane and we got there and it really sucked for a long time. But it was
Was
good. I
London?
think ultimately it fed into the energy of that first record. So,
Yeah. And was like London the obvious place to go at the time?
yeah, it felt very much like a melting pot for music and I mean, I guess in hindsight, we could have gone to New York or Los Angeles, or, there were probably other key places where bands were brewing. But for me, it was always British music. That was the place, and my dad was obsessed with British music, and um, it just felt like that's where the magic was, and I had to get as close to the magic as I could.
Yeah, yeah. And then like, how much preparation did you make? Like, was it literally get the flight and see what happens type of thing?
Yep.
Wow. So can you remember like your
You do
first?
you do stupid shit when you're young.
I mean, it's
But but that's the payoff. You only get a payoff if you take a big risk.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you
Yeah.
kind of armed with some new songs at that point, or did you write them when you got to London?
Yeah, I had written all the songs already.
Oh, well,
And
so
they
that's a big
were
advantage then, yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. We had the demos and we'd sent the demos around to a few people. Um so by the time we landed, we were already kind of like, planning and scheming. But, obviously there were no plans at that point to record an album, so we really didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah, yeah. And like, where did you live and stuff? Did you all live together, or how did it work?
We lived in one bedroom. It doesn't get
Whereabouts?
worse than that. We lived in one bedroom, and it was only because Glenn's sister was living in a big share house that we were able to live anywhere at all. And she had a bedroom, and she was nice enough to let us stay in her room. So the guys were on the floor, and I shared the bed with her. And then we all went out and got like crappy jobs. And we were in Acton, and it was winter, and it was just like, it was all sorts of wrong.
Did you have moments where you thought, what have we done? Or
Yeah,
anything like that?
every day.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And in fact, I had this wild conversation with our manager where I was like, I'm really miserable. This is not like, you got to help us out. And his response to me was, well, you wanted to make a dark album. That was it. That's all he said to me. And so that made me even angrier. Yeah. So you can imagine when we got to the studio like a year later, we were furious. Yeah.
But I suppose, I mean, like, for him to come with you is pretty mad. Like, did he just get a normal job as well? The manager?
He didn't come with us.
Oh, right. I thought you said he
No,
was
he
on
didn't
board.
suffer. No, no, no.
Oh,
He
right.
had a nice house. He was chilling. He's like, you guys go do that.
Okay.
Let me know how it goes.
So you're on the phone to him saying,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We
okay,
were
all
on the
right.
phone, and then he came over at some point or different points. But yeah, for the most part, it was us kind of suffering, um, ultimately achieving, but initially suffering and him guiding us.
Okay. So did he have like contacts helping you out, kind of thing in London? Or not really?
Um, Not so much. It was, I mean, he negotiated record deals and stuff like that, but really it was, if I recall correctly, it was the record label we were with who connected us with Ken Nelson, and
Okay.
sent him the demos as they did some other producers as well.
Yeah, so what was the record label you had in Australia? What was their reaction when you said you're going to London?
I don't remember. Uh, I don't know whether they would have liked that or not liked that. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I think if you have a band that's ambitious enough to want to move to the other side of the world to crack it, then you got to be a little excited.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
who knows? Who knows?
Did you stay with them then or not really? The label.
We did. They released the first two albums that we made as Howling Bells. Yeah.
Okay. Is that Bella Union then?
Belly
No.
Union released the first album in England,
I see what you mean,
and the
right.
label in Australia, Independiente, released the first two albums. Yeah.
Right, right, okay.
Yeah.
So like did you hit the ground running in terms of playing gigs then when you got to London? How did it work?
We didn't play any gigs until that first album was released.
Oh, right.
So it was a proper year of crap. And
So
then
why did you make that decision out of interest?
to wait a year.
Yeah, to play a gig, yeah.
Oh, because we had to wait for Ken Nelson to finish recording Coldplay's album.
Yeah.
So until that point, we didn't have an agent, or like we didn't have a presence in England at all. So there was no point in playing any shows.
Okay.
So we literally just had to bide our time whilst, I think it was Coldplay's third record they were doing. And that took eight to 9 months, I think, at that point. And so weirdly, a few months in, we became so kind of London fatigued that we moved to Brighton for a while, which is weirdly where I've ended up now.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
how frustrating was that then not playing gigs?
It was frustrating. I think it was more frustrating not recording because we had
Right,
these
yeah.
songs that we knew were really good. And it was really frustrating just having them remain as demos, and whilst the world is like speedily revolving around you and new bands are popping up every second, and you're just like exploding with ambition, that's frustrating.
Yeah. Who like kind of hooked you up with Ken Nelson then and why did you stick with him? If obviously good producer, but
um
if he was getting delayed, was there any thoughts of moving with someone else or anything?
I think because he'd worked with Coldplay before, and I was a huge fan of Rush of Blood to the Head. I thought that was brilliant. And um, he'd made some other records that I thought sounded sublime. And I was really committed, or we were really committed to the idea of working with him. And so we did have a choice a couple of times to exit and go work with someone else. But I think because we'd made such a commitment to England, that it just seemed ridiculous to go work with an American producer or anyone else. It was like, if we're going to do this British thing, let's do it properly. Let's work with the guy and go to the studio at Parr Street. And we were really committed to that concept. Um, I kind of felt like that's what we needed in order to make the record we needed to make, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. And like how when you did get to working with him, like how does he compare to other producers type of thing? What kind of sets him apart, do you think?
Um, what really struck me about him immediately was how paced he was. A lot of, well, not a lot, but up until that point, other producers I'd worked with were really frenetic and manic. And he could sit in the same position for 10 minutes and not say a word. And he used to stroke his head a lot. He did this a lot. It's kind of like his brain was brewing and he just had to like center it or something. Um, he was very, very paced and incredibly thoughtful. And um, that really struck me because I have this tendency to want to like act like ASAP, like let's keep going, keep going, keep going. And he really kind of did that. He was like, shh, just chill. Let's just think. So that was the first lesson, I think, for us.
Yeah, and then how once you started recording, like how quick was the process to like getting the album out there?
Do you know I don't remember? Like Glenn is incredible at remembering timelines, and he'll probably tell you exactly what time the album came out. He's that guy. I don't remember any of it. It was a big blur. I remember living in the studio. I remember being in the control room and the live room. Um, I remember all sorts of vague things, but I couldn't tell you what that timeline was.
Ah, fair enough, yeah.
Yeah.
What about, can you remember the jobs you had in London then?
Clothing stores for
Right.
me and pubs for the guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then when were you able to like sack those off, if you know what I mean, and just go full
Well,
musician?
when we moved into Park Street, we had to sack them off
Okay,
because
right.
we must have been there for, I don't know, a month. I don't like, yeah, I don't remember, but it was long enough that we had to quit our jobs. And then pretty much as soon as the album came out, we hit the ground running. We just started touring straight away. Um, and really, really worked at it like a job. Like it was a 9 to 5 job. Like this is what you're doing now for the next couple of years. You're just touring. And then as we were touring, um, the energy picked up. Like, the album came out and press started reviewing it and it kind of gained momentum as we were on the road. And so that propelled us to continue touring for what felt like an eternity. It was a
Yeah,
long
yeah.
time. Yeah.
And like, how do you afford to do that? And obviously you're on a record label. Do you get some kind of advance from the album type thing?
Yeah, we had the record label in Australia. We had the label here in England. Um, and uh, I guess we made money off merch and I mean, when I say money, we were touring in a splitter and staying and sharing rooms at a travel lodge and sleeping on floors. So it was kind of however you could make it work.
Yeah, yeah. And were the tours like more kind of ones that agents would book and management would book rather than
Yeah, we
yourselves type
had,
thing?
yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, we never did it. I don't ever remember doing it ourselves. We had agents and yeah, and everything was booked through the agent and I guess word of mouth and then festivals and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And then I always remember, hearing you on the NME compilation.
Oh yeah, yeah.
How, I mean, NME obviously, like I mentioned before, like a supportive magazine for you. Like, how big were things like that getting on those compilations type thing?
Um, well, that was really cool when you posted that the other day, because that spawned a lot of comments from other people saying, "Oh, that's how I first heard about you," was on those compilations. And so I'm not sure if at the time I realized um, how powerful they were. I think, when you're caught in a moment, which we were, you're not really stopping to think about every article or review or publication that comes out. You're just kind of so wrapped up in your immediate surroundings. So it was only years later, I think, that I realized, looking back at all the articles and stuff, how supportive um, publications like NME were and how instrumental they were in spreading the love.
Yeah, yeah. And then with the tours, were you playing outside of London straight away type thing then?
Yeah, yeah, we got to know the English landscape very well, very quickly. Yeah. So I mean, we actually in Manchester, we became friendly with a lady called Bernie, who I don't know if you know her. I think she was quite legendary with bands at the time because she would just open up her house to bands and they would
Okay.
go in and on any given night there'd be bands sleeping on her basement floor and she had like a freezer full of like curries that she'd made and she'd just pull them out. So every time you were in Manchester, you'd go stay at Bernie's and she'd feed you curry and she'd like give you a blanket and it was awesome. It was radical. But yeah,
Yes.
that happened pretty quickly.
And did you feel like part of the scene at any point? Kind of within that
Um,
guitar scene, I don't know.
it's really weird because we were playing at a time when there was a scene, but I don't know that I felt like we were inside that scene, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Like there were a lot of bands around that time. Um, there weren't a lot of girls, you know? Like I don't remember a lot of girls in bands. I remember a few, but anytime you'd go play a festival or an NME tour, anything like that, there were a lot of dudes and there were a lot of hi-hats. And what we were doing was kind of very um was dusty and dirgy and moody and I'm an extremely romantic person and that felt quite the antithesis of what was happening at the time. So we met some amazing people, but I don't know if I felt like I was in a scene.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's interesting. Like looking back, it was very, yeah, male heavy, kind of
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
white cis
I
man
like
vibe.
the what?
White cis man vibe, I think they'd call it these days.
Yeah. That like if I was coming up now in 2026, I think I'd feel like unbelievably more supported as a woman in the industry because I just think the landscape is it's more welcoming now than ever. So I think it's a fantastic time to come up as a woman in a band.
Yeah, they'd have to be quite a strong character then back in the day, really, as like a female front person.
Yeah, I think a little bit. I think you either became really, um, you had to put on a shield, you had to like put up a shield, or you just, burrowed even more into that introspection that a lot of artists are prone to. And I think I wrestled between the two. So there were a lot of times where I would just like, after a gig, just shut the door and not want to be involved with anything. And then there were other times where I felt um, a lot more happy to confront whatever issues were at bay. But it was a wrestle for me. Yeah.
Yeah. And was there like some interviews or some media around the time that were quite reductive in that respect, that would just kind of
Oh,
focus
for
on you being a
sure.
woman?
For
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think I think because probably there weren't many women around at the time, I think the emphasis on aesthetic was really, really strong. And I think like I don't think you could get away with half the shit that they did back then. I don't think you could I mean, I don't think you could have polls now where, you front a magazine with like the sexiest woman poll or stuff like that. I just don't think people would respond to that now. Unless it was like I don't know. like what's a men's magazine? I don't even know. Unless it were like, specifically a magazine dedicated to that. But back then they were putting it in music magazines and stuff like that. So that was reductive, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then in terms of playing gigs and tours, would you be playing support slots as well as your own headline gigs?
Yeah, for sure. That's again like the NME compilations and stuff like that. That's how a lot of people, as it turns out, discovered the band is because they went to go see us support other bands. So they caught us, you know, by accident or design at a Placebo show or The Killers or Coldplay or any one of those bands that we supported. Editors we did around Europe and um, all those bands, pulled in a lot of like-minded musical souls.
Was that like a big experiences playing with some of those bands in some of those places?
Yeah, it was wild because like I'd said, we'd played England so much by that point that getting on a plane and we played like 25 shows with Coldplay around America. And so that was the first time we'd played there. And so all of a sudden, like your first experience playing in, you know, Santa Barbara or, New York or wherever, you're playing at these stadiums. And it was mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing. And then similarly around Europe with the Killers, same thing, same experience, just, opening up your world and, um, incidentally on the road is where all of us met our partners. So uh it
Where
was
did you meet yours then?
life-changing, you know? Yeah, it's wild. It's wild. Just life-changing on so many levels.
Where did you meet your partner then out of interest?
Hamburg.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, Hamburg. And Glenn met his in Canada, and Joel met his girl in Berlin. So
All right, yes.
yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. They say that like I don't know what the statistic is, but something like 70 to 80% of people meet their partners in the workplace.
Ah,
And I
okay.
guess like ultimately touring is no different because where else are you going to meet people?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you find like it's interesting talking to some bands, like I was talking to Charlotte from the Subways who said like they've gone down, really well in Germany. It's been like they're probably their main place to tour. Have you found
Wow.
somewhere like that that's kind of been unexpectedly like gone better than other places? I don't know.
Um, According to Spotify, Germany,
Ah, okay.
again, but for the most part, it's England and Australia
Right,
for
right.
us. The problem, obviously, with Australia is that it's so far that you can only really get down there every so often. So it's a lot more difficult to nurture that relationship, but we'd love to. It's just challenging.
Yeah, how did you manage that then? How did you build momentum in Australia once you'd moved to London? Was already built that with the with Waikiki a little bit?
Yeah, I think because we had a place in Australia with Waikiki, and so it probably pissed a lot of people off, understandably. But I think once they recognized that we were not messing around and that this wasn't just, a fad, um, it was something we were totally married to. It became more serious, the relationship, I guess, between us and our older fans. And that was great. It was great returning and playing the new record for people. It was daunting. But that's where we're from. That will never change.
Yeah, was that a bit of like a testing moment then taking it back and a bit of
Yeah, it
don't know what the right
was. And
term is, but yeah.
you could really feel the anticipation. Like I mean, I remember playing, it was a show maybe in Melbourne, and they're notorious for being like, they're hardcore music lovers. And you could hear a pin drop in the room, and it was very, very daunting. It was overwhelming. And I think it freaked me out. I was just like, can someone say something? But I think it was very ballsy to just be like, all right, we're out of here. We're gonna go do something else and then come back. And there was a bit of like, all right, well, go on then. Show us what you do, show us what you're made of, that kind of thing.
Is it a bit like that in America as well? Like, I've never been to a gig in America, I don't think. But like the crowds are a bit more, I don't know, relaxed if you like. They're not as
I
active.
relaxed. Do you?
Well, yeah, they're not as active as like a British crowd or something like that.
I think what is similar in every country you play in is that when you hit the big cities, fans tend to be a little bit more chin stroking.
Ah,
And
okay.
then when you get out there a bit, I think there's a kind of combination of complete and utter gratitude that you're touring there, and also like just, deep appreciation. I mean, there's appreciation in both places, but there's definitely more of like this going on in the big cities, and um, that can be overwhelming.
Yeah, yeah. But I did see, I always like to have a dig into NME.com, see what it brings up. And there's a story in Bristol where a fan got you to propose on their behalf or something.
Oh yeah. Was that in Bristol?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Oh, I didn't remember where that was. I do remember that happening. That was amazing. I think it might have been before Setting Sun. And I remember him talking to me about that before the show. And I just thought that was amazing.
See,
I
you
wonder
literally
where
have to sit,
I
yeah.
hope they're still married.
It
Is
doesn't
that,
say that on here,
that
but
that wouldn't feel good.
he literally came up to you and said, "Can you just will I don't know, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So and so,
He
will you
said
marry so and so?" Yeah.
you're our favorite band and this would mean the world to us. And before our favorite song, can you facilitate this? So I did.
That's it.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
great.
Just found the quote actually. It says, "You said I was given a post-it note with this dude's name on it, Gary, asking me if I would propose to his girlfriend Charlotte for him over the mic. Yeah, right before setting sun."
Oh, wow, wow, wow. That's so
Um,
crazy. In my mind, he came and spoke to me, so I guess I made that up.
okay.
But
I
that's
don't know.
that's so cool. Well, I hope
Yeah,
if they listen to your podcast and they are still married in Bristol, that they come and say hello.
yeah. Yeah, you playing there on the upcoming tour, do you think?
Sorry.
You're playing there anytime soon, do you think?
Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head, but we're playing there in March.
Oh, okay. So yeah, they need to get down for that then, definitely. Yeah. But then, yeah, kind of what was the reaction to that first album? And from that point on, you're just building good momentum going into the second
Yeah.
one, kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it was good momentum. It was I feel like as passionate as we were about the music is as passionate as people were in response to the music. So it's kind of like what you give is what you get. And that was definitely apparent when we released that first album. It was a very it was a beautiful response. People were very much devoted to the record and to the songs, and that was very powerful for us to experience.
Yeah, yeah. So when it comes, I mean, in terms of songwriting, then were you kind of consistently songwriting at that point, or was it kind of a set time
Uh,
where you thought, right, we're gonna have to write for the second album here?
I think yeah, we did. We wrote a lot for the second album. And there was, as always with bands' sophomore albums, there was an immense amount of pressure on that second record. And I do remember writing a lot. And I remember visiting the idea of writing with other people for the very first time. And that's not something I'd ever done. So I went and met with a few people, um, and, attempted to write songs with them, which I found deeply uncomfortable.
How
I
come?
didn't
Was it just a
enjoy that
bit?
at all. Hey?
Okay. In what respect? Just a bit like intimidating or something?
No, I just didn't like it. I
Okay.
didn't like it. I find songwriting so incredibly insular and um it's such a like solo experience. And that first record was written pretty much entirely in my bedroom with the door shut. So to then all of a sudden be, in someone's makeshift studio and have them ask you what you want to write a song about, um, was not where I wanted to be. And also I found the whole thing depressing and kind of condescending, if that makes sense.
So
Like
why were you doing it then?
I think the record label pushed me into it.
Okay.
And I was also, I'd taken this massive leap of faith the first time around. And so I felt like, well, let's continue to try things that are new and see where that goes. Um, and so I did. I went with it. I tried it. None of those songs made the record, but I experienced it enough to know that I didn't want to do it again.
Yeah, fair
Yeah.
enough. And you've got some great riffs like over the course of the albums. Like where do they come from out of interest?
Oh, riffs are all Joel,
Okay.
the guitarist. Yeah, 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 yeah. He's Mr. Riff Man. It's very much a process of I'll bring in the acoustic version of the demo, or sometimes I'll demo it on GarageBand and put some like pretend bass on it and stuff. And then it's really, I think the howling bellsness of it happens when Joel brings out his 24 pedal board and slaps a riff onto it, and then you're like, now it sounds like howling bells.
Yeah. And some great drumming, obviously. Shout out to Glenn.
Absolutely. So the
And
the
bass.
sonic element, the atmospheric element of it is kind of all, you know, my vocals, Joel's guitar pedals, and then the kind of there's something very driven and primitive and earthy about it, and that is all Glenn. That's all he's drumming.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the fascinating thing, isn't it? About like the dynamic that you can't really plan. It just has to happen
Yeah,
sometimes between a band. Yeah.
yeah,
Is that what you found?
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Every great band has, you know, very, very specific roles that everyone plays in the band. There's no room for you can't be arbitrary. You can't be 50-50 about anything in a band. You have to have a very strong personality musically. And that's what gives a band a signature sound, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then going into the second album, another big producer who'd worked with like some Radiohead and Moby. Why did you pick them out of interest? Was it a label thing or did you know about them?
Um, so Dan Gretsch produced the second album, and that was in LA. And I think again we were looking for a different sound, and we were chasing something different. And there was internal conflict in the sense that a couple of us wanted to stay in England and do exactly the same thing with the same producer. And then the other half really wanted to dive into the other end of the pool and try something different.
Which half
Um,
were you then?
I wanted to stay. I wanted to stay. I kind of interestingly, the musical dynamic of the band is that Glenn and I have always been very much rooted in, the dark heart of country music. That's something that Glenn and I have always really connected over. And then Joel and Brendan, who was in the band at the time, were very much driven, more so by electronic music and, of course, Radiohead, um, and stuff like that. And so we tried to find this middle ground, and LA was exploring more sonically. And I was happy to try that, and we did, and we used some, different instruments, and Joel bought this insane synthesizer, and we really delved into a different sound over there.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I read that it charted better than the first. Is that right, or something?
I think it might have. I don't remember. I don't remember. It was a very different sounding record. And I appreciate that again, that may have isolated people at the time. Um, but also we picked up a lot of new fans, and that's in fact when we went on tour with Coldplay. So it kind of coincided with this whole a different audience and um, you know, really traveled in a different world at that point.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, it's definitely a bigger production, I'd say.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was
But
it was yeah, it was a different vibe for sure.
yeah, yeah. I was really enjoying is it Breaking My Back, the
Oh
last song on the
yeah.
album.
I
It's a
love
really
that
good song,
track.
that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And good riff again on
Yeah.
Nightingale.
Yeah, Nightingale's big. That's a big track. I love that track. Yeah. I always wanted to perform that with an orchestra, but we never quite got there.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
You mentioned Coldplay. Am I right in thinking you did backing vocals for them at one point or something?
Yeah, so after we got on well with them, and then after that I ended up writing a song with Chris, and then he invited me to the studio at the time they were recording to sing backup vocals on a track called Up with the Birds.
Yes. Was that kind of a different experience or was it just similar to what you used to? I don't know.
I think if we hadn't have gone on tour with them, I probably would have found that really surreal. But because we'd already, formed a connection of sorts, then it was fine. It was going into a studio and singing some oohs and ahs, and in fact, you really can't hear them on the track. I mean, they're in there somewhere, but you'd have to like isolate the vocals, I think.
And was that a relationship you had? Did that come through having the same producer or was it like a different kind of thing?
No, that was really just, I believe, Chris being a fan of that record, of the first record, and um, he was actually a really big fan of the song Nightingale that you just
Ah, okay.
mentioned, and um, Velvet Girl of the first record. And I mean, I believe he was a fan, and so that's how that happened.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you must have played some mad venues with them then.
Crazy, really crazy. Yeah, I mean, really, just like pinch yourself moments, and um, like a lot of people, just like a lot of humans in one space, and it's so weird because like by about show 15. It starts to really not be a big deal at all. And you're just like, yeah, all right, okay, I'm just gonna go out in front of 20,000 people now. And you're just like, hey, how's it going? No big deal. But now it seems mad. Now when I see the photos, I'm like, that is crazy.
Yeah, yeah. Does that have a big effect on the interest in the band then? Do you pick up a lot of fans from those big gigs, do you think?
Yeah, you do. Not as many as I think that you think, kind of thing. I think people's interest were piqued and they, bought some merch, but kind of unless you're going back to play venues to follow up on the tour, eh, you know, it's like we didn't go back. You know what I mean? Like we played this huge tour and then we didn't follow up. And unless you follow up, it's kind of you're never really gonna know. So it was
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
like an amazing experience, and then we just continued kind of making records and touring in England.
Ah, okay. I saw around that time you was watching a video of you covering Britney Spears earlier, which was interesting.
Oh yeah.
Enjoyed that.
Toxic.
Yeah, yeah.
That's such a good song.
No, it's ace, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a brilliant song. Yeah, I remember, I think we covered that for maybe, I don't know, Radio 1, Radio 2, something like that. We wanted to like take something really mainstream and give it an edge. But I still love that song. I think it's brilliant.
No, yeah, I was watching a video with the woman who actually wrote it, I think. And like
Oh yeah.
the insight behind it is really interesting. I can't remember exactly what she said now, but
Is
I
it
think there's quite an interesting
Kathy
story behind
Dennis? Is
it.
that who wrote it?
Possibly, yeah, I'm not sure.
I don't remember. Yeah, but yeah,
But
amazing.
yeah, it's worth YouTubing. And
Yeah.
then was there a bit of a shuffle around with labels and stuff after the second album then?
hmm Yeah, we had we actually had a different label for every Howling Bells record in this part of the world. So we moved on to oh, that was Independiente for the second record. And then yeah, and it was Radio Wars only. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And then obviously talks a lot about kind of the changing landscapes on the podcast in terms of, get to the end of 2000s, things looking a bit different. Like,
Mm.
how was it navigating that as a band for you guys? Did you feel that?
Yeah, I think we did feel that, and I think that it's really interesting because we I remember starting like a MySpace account, and that was kind of the beginning of social media, I guess, for bands. And uh, when I think about it, we kind of ended up taking a hiatus around the time that, Twitter and Instagram really picked up. So you can see which bands kind of were really active during the advent of social media and which bands, were around just before that. Um, so I think bands that are coming up now, uh, it's non-negotiable. Like being active on social media is non-negotiable if you're an artist in 2026. But back then, of course, all we did was record, release music, and the rest was up to fate. That was it.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think it serves the art better without all the social media and pushing content, do you think?
I think it serves the artist better.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think if artists were left to be artists, um, and not advertising executives, then I think a lot more creation would happen. I think a lot more magic would happen. But, how can you say in hindsight? But that's my instinct.
Yeah, yeah. I also feel like, yeah, it's just, I don't know, kind of lacks a bit of mystery today, I think, music. I
Oh, for
think,
sure. For
yeah,
sure. I mean, trying to walk that tightrope now, um, is really challenging.
yeah, I
Like
can
trying to
imagine, yeah.
figure out how much to give and how much not to give, and being a naturally, um, you know, I guess I walk the line of introvert, extrovert. So on some days I'm really like, hi, we have a new album coming out, la la la. And then other days I'm like, I can't even open the computer. So
Yeah, yeah.
there are some people that are just unbelievable at it, just born to do it. And maybe that has to do with the fact that they were born with it. And so it's not awkward, but it's awkward for me, you know.
Yeah, yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah.
And then obviously a big link to the pod or the vibe of the pod with recording the third album with the Killers bassist, Mark
hmm
Stomer. How did that come to be?
Well, that came again because we'd done a bunch of touring with them.
Ah, okay, yeah.
And um we forged a connection with Mark that way, and he had a studio, or the band, the Killers have a studio called Battleborn in Las Vegas. And so, again, we kind of, followed our noses at the time and ended up renting a house in Las Vegas for a month or so and recording the album there. And so that
Yes.
again impacted the sound of the record. It was a lot more desert spun, and I think there was a lot more kind of um, like retro psychedelia that seeped in there.
And how did he compare to other producers then?
Well, he hadn't really done a lot of producing up until that point, so it was all kind of like experimentation and a bunch of buddies in a studio together um, experimenting. And so I think you can definitely hear that on the record. Um, and everyone really let loose. So there were these like spiraling guitar solos and um, the vocals. I experimented vocally and it kind of felt like those movies like Blow and I don't know, Scarface or Almost Famous or something like that. And there's always these parts where the gangsters or the bands get to like the 80s and everyone's done like way too much cocaine and they're just like a little fed up and losing their minds a little bit, minus the drugs. It was a little bit, when I think about it, it was a little bit like that. I think we took a break after that album.
Yeah, yeah. It's a good
You
place to
may
have it.
have to edit out a lot in this podcast. I don't know.
No, no,
I
it's
don't
all
know what
good.
you can and can't say.
All right. I think we're all right. Yeah. But yeah, it's a good place to like kind of reach your limits in Vegas, I guess.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, it was again a culture shock and absolutely fascinating to live in a house there and watch how people went about their daily rituals. That was really fascinating.
Yeah, yeah, I can't really imagine it, but
Yeah.
yeah.
It's hard to imagine life outside, the main strip of Vegas.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
there's like, massive suburbia and schools and dental clinics and stuff like that.
And then, yeah, when I spoke to Glenn, he did mention kind of you went from having favorable reviews in NME to some that were, say, less favorable. How did you navigate that as a band as well? Was it
I
important or not
think,
really? I don't know.
did you say was it hard?
No, was it important at that point or not really? I don't know.
It didn't feel as important, and I think that we had definitely we were aware of a trend where journalists were really, really slamming bands that they had lifted up years before. And so it seemed like a very fashionable thing to do, I guess. I remember a review of Black Rebel Motorcycle Club, and it was devastating. It was like a 2 out of 10, and they, were just awful, awful. And then I remember the Vines, the same thing. They like slammed them and gave them like a 1 out of 10. And I just remember thinking, you can't be serious. Like you can't be a esteemed musical journalist if you're, elevating these bands a year ago and putting them on the cover of your magazine and then kicking them to the gutter a year later. That doesn't it's not politics, like they didn't lose the election. They just made an album you didn't love that much. It's like, so I think by the time they'd come round to do it to us, like it was our turn, um, we kind of knew the drill. It was like, oh, okay, here we go. All right. And you
Yeah.
just move on. That's it.
But I guess at that point, you've already kind of got an established audience that, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah. We had like and still do, you have like loyal fans that are very much concerned with the music, and that's what inspires them. So you go with that.
Yeah, yeah. Then yeah, you mentioned taking a bit of a break. Is that the point where you kind of started your own solo stuff, kind of thing?
Yeah, I think I needed to explore that musically and emotionally. I really needed to see what the world had to offer on my own. And so um, that involved me recording my first solo album by myself, in Los Angeles. Again, I found myself and it was very lonely and it was eye-opening and I'm proud of that record. I love that record. Um, and then I went on to make three more after that. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Did you find it was easy to build momentum off the back of the band, kind of doing your own thing?
Yeah, I mean, like playing solo shows meant that I was seeing a lot of Bells fans at the shows, naturally. And actually, it was really quite amazing because I got to reconnect with them and hear their stories about what role the Howling Bells played in their lives. And you're doing it all whilst at the merch desk without the guys around you. So it kind of I received the information very differently, and it was eye-opening for that reason.
Yeah, yeah. And kind of reading, I don't know, like all different other projects you've been involved with, like contributing to vocals with Sleepy Jackson and people like that back in the day.
Do you know
You
what?
kind
That
of,
never happened.
oh, really?
That's a lie. Someone lied about that.
Okay.
We knew those, well, I mean, we know those guys, and but I never sang on that record. I mean, I've done, lots of other cool things, but that wasn't one of them.
All right. And then is this might be a lie as well, but I mean Glenn's in a band with Nick Hodgson from Kaiser Chiefs, but it says that
Yeah,
you were at one point.
that's not a lie.
Okay.
That's not a lie. That was a cool kind of project called Albert, yeah. And that was Nick, and that was Tom Greatorex and Danny Preston, I think, on drums, and Nick's lovely other half, Anna, on vocals. And I was playing guitar, which I'd never done in a band before. I'd never like only played guitar. And so that was a trip. That was really cool. I think we played two gigs.
All right. That says Tom's yeah, I know Tom. I didn't know he did that. That's funny. That
Yeah,
is.
he's awesome. He's a rad guy. He incidentally has done artwork for Howling Bells
All
and my
right,
solo
cool.
stuff. Yeah.
I kept that quiet. Um, and then yeah, how did you know Nick then? Was that through just touring and stuff?
Yeah. Just from the scene.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And they were like in true Nick fashion. They're, brilliant pop songs. Really great.
No, he's got away with melody, hasn't he? Definitely.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then yeah, just other things like supported Travis last year as well, which I thought was cool
Yeah.
because Glenn came straight from there to my thing.
Yeah, that's right. He was in true Glenn fashion, he was spinning about 18 plates at the same
Yeah.
time. Um, I remember that. Yeah, that
Yeah.
was a solo support tour. Yeah.
And then how does it work with like, I don't know, putting music out these days? Do you have, I don't know, the backing to do it? Obviously, it's gone down really well with your solo stuff as well. Have you found it easy to navigate with labels these days? How does it work?
Um, do you mean for this most recent Howling Bells album?
No, yeah, just me and sorry, like with kind of money going out of the music industry, have you found it
Yeah.
challenging at all to get music out? I don't know.
Um, yeah, I mean, look, it's not the 80s. I mean, there aren't like major labels, you know, bankrolling bands like it's, happy hour at the pub. That doesn't happen anymore unless you're Harry Styles or whatever. But um, I've been very lucky, I think, collaborating with independent labels, and I've always had support, and I think that's um, it's miraculous, but it's also a combination of my hard work and my commitment to my craft. And I'm, um, good at what I do, and I'm incredibly committed. And I think that if you are a fan of the kind of music that I do, then it's going to work out. So I've been working with Nude Records for the last Nude put out my first few solo records, and we're lucky enough to have picked back up with them for this latest Howling Bells record.
Ah, okay, yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, like in terms of writing songs, and like when you sit down to write a song, do you know it's going to be a solo one or a Howling Bells one just
Um,
by
I kind of do. I
okay.
kind of do. Like if the minute I start writing a song, I'll get a feeling pretty soon into it. There are some songs which kind of cross over and I'll bring them into the band. And because we're so road worn with each other that, Joel will be like, no, that's shit. Next song. Or Glenn will be like, that's not for us. So there's not a lot of time wasted. It's everybody knows pretty damn quickly what's for the band and what's not.
Yeah, have you always had that kind of relationship where you can be quite frank with each other? Yeah.
100%. Yeah, I think that's because we've known each other for so long, but also we're Aussie. So there's this double double whammy of no bullshit, which is great, and how I've kind of navigated through life up until this point, which can be, rub people up the wrong way, but there's not a lot of time for BS, I find.
No, it's definitely a good way to be, I think, yeah.
Yeah.
And then yeah, so this new Howling Bells album then, so it's like the first in 12 years. Is that
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
what's been the catalyst for doing it?
I think that it's always been a thought, or not even a thought, it's always been kind of like an understanding, I think, that we would make another record. I just I just don't think we knew when. And I think probably me starting to write songs again kick-started it. And then we went out on the road a couple years ago and did some shows for Revive Live, and like played some really important small venues and bigger venues, and it was all to kind of promote live music, and it was brilliant. It was really great, and it lit the fire, I think. And it was only a couple years after that that we got back into a studio to demo new songs.
Yes. And yeah, make sure I ask the questions that people sent in.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
Shooting David on Instagram says, first album as vinyl re-release question mark.
I would say I would say there's a very strong possibility of that.
Okay, yes. Chrissy Kelson, any plans to tour Australia soon?
I would also say there's a very strong possibility of that.
Okay, announcements coming soon regarding stuff then, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Possibly. Um, oh yeah, and someone else on Twitter asking about a vinyl issue of the debut LP. So what is it? Did it never go on record then?
You know what? It never got released on vinyl, which
Ah,
is
okay, right.
tragic. Yeah. So that's very, very much at the forefront of our minds because the 20-year anniversary is coming up.
Ah, yeah, yeah. So it's a good time to
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right, cool. I'll just finish on some general ones that I ask everyone.
Hmm.
I should have briefed you on these really. But
Yeah.
You mentioned a few big names in music. Is there any kind of standout stories about touring with a big name in music or anything like that, or a funny story?
Um,
Do you ever like bump into Oasis or anything like that? I don't know.
did I ever bump into them
Yeah, do
anywhere?
you have any interactions with the Gallagher brothers or anything like that?
No, no, but my brother did, and that's a story for him to tell you
Right, okay.
on another podcast.
Right. You can come on the radio show or something, yeah.
Yeah, I can't tell that story. No, not them. I did recently have a wonderful encounter, however, with Johnny Marr,
Oh,
and that
okay.
was backstage. It was backstage at Madison Square Garden like a year ago.
Wow, okay.
And obviously being a very big fan of his, and I had gone back to like fangirl just to be like, you're so great. And he came at me to fanboy about Howling Bells. And
Wow.
that was that was absolutely shocking for me. Because you forget for a minute when you're speaking to your musical heroes that you're also a musician. And he just talked about how much he loved that, the first couple of records, and how much of a fan he was of Joel's guitar playing. And so I couldn't, I didn't know what to say. Apparently I just not said a lot, but I did call Joel straight after. I'm like, you'll never believe it. And he was chuffed. It was nice. It was really nice.
No, that's it, yeah. Were you
Yeah.
playing there then at Madison Square Garden?
Sorry?
Were you playing there at the time?
Oh, no, 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 no. He was playing with the Killers that night.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So we had some friends in town. It was a great night. And, he plays Smith songs in his set, and it was just magic.
Yeah, yeah. Love to go there one day, definitely.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, just to finish on then, was there a high point of the early days, and is there anything you do differently about them?
Um, I can't ever say that I would do anything different. It kind of goes against everything I believe spiritually. A high point would be, weirdly, our very first sold out show in Manchester
All right.
is a massive high point because it was maybe the first time we'd sold out a show after having released the record. And I remember the feeling in the room. And I remember calling my mother and waking her up in Sydney at like, 2 o'clock in the morning and being like, something really cool is happening. And it just felt cool. And she was so excited. And it just, at that moment in time, um, it kind of felt validating that we had taken this big leap of faith, like I'd said. And it felt like a stamp of approval or something. And so that always remains as a really poignant memory.
Yes. Okay, well, yeah, looking ahead to the new album then, is it 13th of February it comes out?
13th of February it comes out, yeah.
Okay, and obviously the usual channels to keep an eye on type thing.
Absolutely. All the social media channels, and then we have released a special edition with Dinked. And they're in like, some very cool independent record stores, and it's, got glow in the dark vinyl. So how can you go wrong?
Yes. Who did you record this one with out of interest? Sorry.
So this one was recorded with Ben Hillier, who um, I had recorded my last two solo albums with, The Weightless Hour and Snapshot. Um, and it was only until I got to Ben that I think I understood what a real producer-artist relationship was. Because we'd had these really standout moments with various producers in our career, but it was honestly when I got into the studio with him, that I felt absolutely uh, myself and really liberated in a weird way. Just he allows you the space and the room to explore musically. Um, and ironically, I joked with my dad quite a few times that, I'd been from everywhere, everywhere from Las Vegas to, you know, Europe and everywhere in between, only to find that my kind of, you know, think partner was based 10 minutes down the road from me in Brighton because he has his studio in Lewis. Um, so you got to do a lot of searching, but I really, it was a no-brainer when it came to recording the new Bells record to go into the studio with him.
Yes. And like, kind of, what does success look like now for the band? Do you kind of just, I don't know, you're in a position now where you can just enjoy it instead of
Yeah,
worrying about
yeah,
anything else? Yeah.
yeah. It feels, it's a nice time in our lives, I think, to be releasing a record. I think it's it feels, we feel wise and road worn in a really beautiful way. And I've been releasing solo records for the last, 8, 9 years. And so it feels like the perfect time to launch back into the bells and do it with real gusto and spirit.
Okay, so that's a great finishing point.
Amen.
Well, yeah,
Thank you
thanks a lot
so
for that.
much. Yeah.